It's Most Things Kenobi, an elegant podcast for a more civilized fandom.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Most Things Kenobi, a podcast about Obi-Wan Kenobi and all things Star Wars. I am your host, Leanne.
And I'm your host, Lauren.
And this week we are talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi in every sense, because we're talking about Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Honestly, I'm so ready. I feel like we've been away from Obi-Wan for a long time, especially since we're doing every other week now. So it's been like months since we've talked about Obi-Wan.
Too long.
Yes.
But we're back.
Thank God.
Really, having to go through and watch clips of the Kenobi series again really made me love it all over again. Like, there are some things that I remember loving, and then I rewatched them, and I was like, oh, this is so good. Why do people think that this is a bad show? I don't understand. They're entitled to their opinion. They're allowed to dislike it, but like, I really like this show.
Yeah, I think maybe because you're just watching clips of it, maybe because they're like, I've rewatched the whole thing in entirety now, maybe 2 more times, and I like it less each time.
You like it less each time?
I do. I like...
How interesting.
I mean, like, Ewan is amazing, and the stuff that's good, I feel like, is so good. And the stuff that's bad makes my cringe factor go off real hard. And
there are some things that are a little cringy. I will go with you on that. Yeah.
Some of the bad guys are not scary.
No. I mean, when Vader's in the show, who is gonna top that? Honestly,
yes. And like, he is like, oh my God, the stuff with Vader and Obi-Wan.
It's just so good.
Yes. Like, thank
so
God. And Bale. Oh my God. Everything with Bale.
True.
And I love it.
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, there are some really top-notch things. And like you said, some cringy thing. Of the cringy moments, I can name like 3 off the top of my head, So there are those. It's in there.
But I think that unlike some other stuff in Star Wars that might be a little cringy, like, there's enough, I feel like, counterbalance that's good to make me want to keep watching the show and like come back to the show, because the stuff that's good.
Isn't that kind of all Star Wars? There's always something cringy.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
We got to keep our perspective here.
Good point. That's a really good point. Even the original trilogy, there's plenty of stuff where, like, you might, after you've seen it, skip on by it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, we're talking about our favorite moments that made us love Obi-Wan Kenobi all over again as a Star Wars character, as our favorite character.
Yes.
And we have not talked about it yet, so I'm very curious to see what you say. Because what I tried to do going into this was pick something that I thought we wouldn't each pick, so that we would have something to talk about. Because honestly, you and I love Obi-Wan pretty equally.
Yeah.
So I tried to pick something that was not the most obvious thing, but not the most subtle thing either. Just so we wouldn't have any overlap.
Interesting. Because I did like my favorite and a runner-up, which I assumed we would have overlap in that. And then I have like, quote, honorable mentions, which are like those little nuggets where I was like, yes. Like,
yeah, I mean,
little...
I told you, the only thing I said to her in a text last night was, I had like a moment. It is my favorite Obi-Wan moment in the series, but I can't speak on it for an entire episode. So I chose something else.
Yeah.
Now, if we were talking about our favorite Vader moments in this episode, oh my God, I'd be here for a week. I f***ing forgot how fabulous all of that was.
It's so good. The stuff on Mapuzo between them.
I watched it like 3 times.
It's so good.
That whole interaction, just to make sure. And it does have to do with my moment that I'm going to talk about in this episode.
Oh, great. It made me realize how much I miss Netflix party when you and I used to watch Clone Wars episodes together. This is long before we had a podcast. This was just our friendship. God. We would watch.
This was like
Clone
2017, 2018.
Yeah.
When this shit existed, it doesn't even exist anymore because corporations got greedier. Imagine that.
We would like rewind stuff so much we'd break the interface and have to relaunch it.
We'd have to restart it because we were that extra.
I guess it's a good thing it doesn't exist for the Kenobi series, or we'd have broken the internet.
We would have never got through any of the episodes because we'd just still be rewinding to this day.
Okay, so do you want to say like your top moment? How do you want to do it?
Well, I'll talk about my favorite moment because I can't talk about it all episodes. So I'll just mention it here and why it's not an episode long discussion, really.
Okay.
But honest to God, I rewatched it and I was like, yeah, I remember seeing this moment the first time in the series, having an emotional reaction to it and realizing like, this is why I like this man so much. It's very simple. And it's very early in the series. It's when he's working at that meat shop, or whatever the that is. And he slices off a piece of meat and wraps it and keeps it for his EOP. And he does it after every shift.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? He cares about creatures. He cares about everyone. He's a kind person. He has a full heart. He takes others into consideration in everything he does. And that is just such a simple detail that they added that I thought was so appropriate because he's taking care of another creature yet again. And we've seen this countless times of him being kind to a creature, an animal or whatever byproduct of the two. He's kind to children. He's kind to other races, other humans, he's just a kind-hearted human. And I just love that little moment. I thought it was a nice touch. If we're talking about how it relates back to why we like Obi-Wan in the first place, I think it's a prime example of why I like Obi-Wan in the first place, is because he's just truly kind. I mean, he's gonna slice you in half if he has to, absolutely. But, not a cinnamon roll, but he is going to save that little tiny piece of meat and wrap it up and bring it for his little horse. Because he's a nice guy.
Even in the midst of like his own pain and, he's in this terrible place mentally, emotionally at this time. And he still takes the extra time to care for the animal and be kind to it.
Yeah, it's just a little, it's a little thing. It's just a little moment. But I think it's a larger example of the kind of person he is. And I love that. But I also can't speak a whole episode on this one moment. So I had to add that though.
I like that too. And in that scene, there's actually a lot going on because he takes a little extra for himself. And then there's the other guy who's not getting paid the full amount. And Obi-Wan wants to speak up. You see him about to speak up. And then he changes his mind. And
we know why. Because this lived through Kadavo. He's not about to make the same mistake again. He learned.
I know. God,
Even though it's in him, he wants to help. He wants to say something. He wants to stick up for the little guy. He wants to stick up for injustice. But sometimes you're in a position where you just can't.
It's so symbolic, too, to see this person who always stood up for somebody to have to crush. Like, they have been crushed so much that their instinct is now to second guess that.
Isn't that a shame? That's a shame.
It's really telling of where he is mentally and emotionally after what happened on Mustafar.
Yeah.
I wish, I really wish they had made more or any references to Clone Wars in this series. Because there's so much for the character. Even, can you imagine in his little, dream sequence, if they had thrown in a flash of live-action Zygeria? Oh, my God.
Totally. Oh,
it would have been awesome.
Don't tease me with that. Oh, my God. Oh.
It would have been just a snippet. And even, they could have thrown in the Lawless. People would have lost their minds.
Gone ape. Would have been insane. Oh, well.
And it would have been...
Can't have nice things.
Yeah. It would have been such a nice reward too to people who had watched Clone Wars and like grown up with it to keep loving Star Wars. I don't know. I just feel like they need to hire us to tie their loose ends together.
This is the theme of 2025, I guess.
Yeah.
Someday, maybe.
Well, I love that moment. It's classic Obi-Wan.
It's just a little mini moment. Do
Yeah.
you have a bigger one? What is your main one?
My main one is kind of obvious, I think. It's from the very end when he's fighting Vader and he blasts basically from the moment he like blasts all the rocks off of himself and jumps up out of the hole he's fallen into. And then he fights Vader with this kind of renewed focus. Like he was already ready when he said, "I will do what I must." That was pretty special.
Sorry, your phrasing. Yes,
But then-
go on.
The thing I love about the sequence, though, from there moving forward, it's so Obi-Wan in a totally different way than, like, your example. His ability to read an opponent and use their weaknesses against them instinctively. It's amazing. Like, he knows how Anakin fights, and Obi-Wan is proficient in most forms. He just chooses to use, what is it, form 3? I can never remember the forms. Whatever
the
his
expert.
Ataru or whatever it is. Saresu, I think that's Obi-Wan's thing. But he can fight in Anakin's style as well. So he literally, you see him using Anakin's moves against him. He does the windmill behind the back and all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he switch hands at one point?
yes,
Oh,
he does. And he does like a double hand with a reverse grip, which I have a theory that Ahsoka learned her reverse grip from Obi-Wan. You never see Anakin use it. You do see Obi-Wan use it. So
That's a fantastic theory and a smart one. Yeah, realistic, yeah.
you've seen it only with Obi-Wan when he has either 2 lightsabers or in the Kenobi series, he uses a lot of reverse grip. You never
does?
see Anakin use reverse
That's true.
grip.
No.
So-
No. He's very aggressive.
Yeah.
Like straight on, head on.
And the reverse grip is a lot of like the Shoto blade is the defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like it makes sense that Obi-Wan would know how to use that. But anywho's, he also uses all the rocks, right? He picks them all up and smashes Anakin. And it kind of like hit me this time watching it that it's weakening Anakin, but it's also enraging him. And when Anakin is angry, he loses focus. Always.
Yeah, he gets sloppy. He's
Yes.
always been sloppy when he loses focus.
Exactly. So he's not only being super powerful, which is incredibly sexy, but he's also he's being intelligent, also like using Anakin's weaknesses against him. And it's
The
awesome.
thing about Obi-Wan is his intelligence that is pretty sexy. It's admirable.
Yeah.
It's, if you were an onlooker, an innocent bystander, and you didn't know any better, you would know that this guy is intelligent by the way that he, number one, sizes up an opponent. Number two, how he strategizes his way through the fight. Conserving energy where is necessary, deflecting, doing the defensive where it's necessary, offensive where necessary. And you would think this guy is a seasoned warrior. And his intelligence is what makes him very threatening. Because intelligent people, intelligent fighters, we'll say, are not in your face. Anakin's style was in your face. He's tall, he's broad, he has the eye, the eye contact. He never backed down. He's right up in it in your face and he will overpower you. But then the person who's more subtle and uses a more intelligent way of fighting, it's less predictable and you can't read them as well as they can read you. And I find that to be, it's like the Thrawn effect. Thrawn is always thinking, and he's really intelligent, and he's scary as because of it. But he also has like that imposing. His poise is scary just because he's Thrawn.
His reserve is so reserved that it's terrifying.
But it's in the same line as like
Yeah.
Obi-Wan. He's intelligent, and you can't with that because it's just not possible. But he will with you, and that's awesome. He's hot.
It's so cool too because he's also getting like his feet knocked out from under him At the beginning of the fight, Vader hits him with rocks also. And it's a really good example of how Obi-Wan doesn't let his emotions completely conquer him. And that's what the whole show is about, right? Because his emotions have overwhelmed him. Yes. He is defeated by it. And then the ending is him releasing himself from that. But that's also condensed down in that fight because he does a great job in the beginning of the fight. He's not getting overwhelmed. And then he literally gets crushed with rocks. Like we've talked about when we did our whole episode just about this fight. Mm-hmm. It's the symbol of him literally being crushed under the weight of everything.
Yes.
And even in that moment, even though he's like literally under a pile of boulders, it doesn't consume him. He still overcomes it, just as he overcomes his emotion. Not that he's not emotional, but he doesn't let it get in the way of what needs to be done, which is just, if only I could be that way.
I was just sitting here thinking, like, he's a good example of what I wish I could do every single day and fail miserably at. Controlling your emotions is really hard.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. And that's the sign of an enlightened person, is someone who can.
Yeah. Obi-Wan is so good.
I know. I love him so much.
I love him. God.
Did you have a runner-up?
Oh, yeah. So, honest to God, I could talk for like years on end about his very last scene with Leia, where he talks about her mom and dad.
Yes. Oh, my God.
It goes back to the kindness factor. He levels with her, literally, down to her level, and gives her the truth about her parents, in a way that she can handle. Yeah. But while I could, that is obviously one of my favorite moments, but I'm going to go with something a little different. It made me I really admire Obi-Wan Kenobi. So my main moment is when they're on, so him and the woman and Leia, what's her character's name again? Tala. I was going to say not that, but so it's, it's him, Tala, and Leia, and they're hiding, and Vader is going to come down the street, right? Iconic. It's so iconic. Here's why I like this scene and why I like Obi-Wan Kenobi in a larger sense. He's obviously protecting Leia and Tala to an extent. He tells them to get going, like, get out of here, go, because he knows what the is about to happen. And I think earlier in this episode, it was revealed to him that Anakin was alive. And he's putting it together, right, that Anakin is the guy in the suit.
Yes.
And he's going to get his first glimpse of what used to be his best friend. And of course, this the runway is set for the diva to come walking down in his cape and his boots, not Chanel, but Dolce & Gabbana. And here he comes. The whole thing is so frightening. And you have Vader out in the open, and you have Obi-Wan enclosed, and there's that bar of light over his eyes because he's looking out through the slats of whatever that is.
Yeah, like in a prison.
Yes. And Vader knows he's there. He just doesn't know where. And Vader uses that kindness I spoke about to draw him out. He starts killing innocent people for no reason. Horrifically. Snapping necks, dragging them out of the windows, dragging a woman down the street crying. That's me. Just pulling innocent people out because he knows that's going to drive Obi-Wan Kenobi nuts.
Yeah.
And it kind of works because he's got to draw Vader away from Tala and Leia at the same time. And he knows what's happening. So if he goes out, maybe Vader will stop. They sense each other. And it's the Vader snap head turn.
Yeah, the horror film moment.
Yes. I love every second of that. And all the sound goes out. And you know that they sense each other. During this moment, there's a lot of emphasis on Ewan's face. His eyes, the fear. I mean, Ewan does a fantastic job. He can't believe what he sees. And he's fascinated by what he sees. Because in his head, he's putting it together like, this used to be. And this is why I love Obi-Wan. For years, he was that man's best friend. They were like brothers. They shared so many things together. Think of it like your best friend turns into the epitome of darkness, head to toe, in black, stands for everything that he used to fight against. The complete opposite in visual and in like internal.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan is afraid. There has to be something in his brain thinking like, this can't be real. Like physically, how did he live through this?
Yeah.
How did it come to this? To even be able to move past that alone. And this is early on in the series before he really connects with the Force in full. He's not ready yet. And that's the point of their fight scene, is that it answers the question, why does Vader say in episode 4, when we last met, I was but a, all this stuff and this, that, and the other thing, the whole thing. And then, he gets drawn through broken fire glass, but that's besides the point. The point is, psychologically, Obi-Wan is not prepared to face a person who has completely changed so much, and yet he does. Mm-hmm. He's not mentally there yet, but he has to because of Leia and Tala.
Yeah.
This is a man who continuously faces his fears, mentally, physically, everything in between, and does it out of the love of someone else, Leia. He does it out of facing shit from his past, his failures he thinks that are his failures. This is the embodiment of darkness and what's wrong with the galaxy, and it used to be his best friend. Went down on Mustafar.
Yeah.
And I just respect the hell out of Obi-Wan, because do you know how many times I would say, I'm not ready. I'll catch you next time. I tiptoe away. I would tiptoe the away. But he does it anyway. And he continually does this. And then it ends up this giant, beautiful scene between him and Anakin in the fight that you described, that we described in our episode. But
yeah.
And then he apologizes for everything that happened. But in that moment, he's so scared and he's so... Can you imagine being that confused?
Oh my God. He's got a lot going on there.
There's so much that is revealed to him in so little time. Mm-hmm. And he has Leia, and he has Tala, and he's got a street full of people that are just dying left and right because Anakin wants to draw him out. Do you know the overwhelming amount of sensations?
Seriously.
It's like info overload. It would paralyze some people.
It would destroy some people.
But he just walks right out and faces it. I just respect the hell out of him, and I love that about Obi-Wan. I always have.
We've talked about this so many times, about how in the face of like the most horrific shit, he still finds a way to rise to the occasion. And it's the same, like even in Phantom Menace, he makes a promise to Qui-Gon and protects Anakin.
Yeah.
Just like in this, he is protecting Anakin's daughter from Anakin.
That's insane. That's the other thing. He has all this knowledge that no one else does.
Yeah.
Not even Anakin. Anakin doesn't know he has a daughter.
Right, you're right. Yeah.
It's crazy. And the scenes before this, so the scenes leading up to it, he's literally on his knees in a prayer position asking Qui-Gon for help because he knows what he has to do. He doesn't want to do it. He's afraid to do it. How many of us have faced something that we have to do but we're deathly afraid of, and we ask for help or guidance or give me the courage to just do this? I just can't imagine. There's so much history there. And I just give him so much respect. And I just think it was so well done in that instance where they focus on his eyes, because a lot of it is seeing him for the first time. Yeah. Understanding that this man in black, this machine, is the remnants of your best friend in the last 30, 40 years of your life.
Yeah.
It's up, man. It's too much. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful because that's Star Wars. Luke has to do it. Luke is exactly the same, is in the same position. Even actually, when Obi-Wan is on his knees asking for help and reliving things, he's hearing the voice of Yoda, which is not a coincidence. There's just a lot. There's a lot. It's Star Wars.
It's so good.
I just really appreciate everyone's performance in all of that.
Yes, and like how they take it seriously. I really enjoyed this show in a way that I didn't enjoy the prequels, in a sense, because, and this is really a George Lucas thing, he wants to keep it like a Saturday afternoon movie. So True. Even in, well, I was in A New Hope, when Luke comes back and finds his family burned to a crisp on the ground, Mark Hamill wanted to play it realistically. Like, he was like, I think I'd be pretty upset. And George Lucas is like, I don't want you to cry. Like, I don't want it to get too emotional. We need to stay in, like, fairyland a little bit. This show really allowed Ewan to kind of dive into the real pain, whereas, you know, in Revenge of the Sith, we get it right in the end of their, you know, when he cuts his legs off and leaves him there to die.
Yeah,
and you get the
just
"you were
that.
my brother, Anakin," like that. Like, that is it. And I think that's kind of why it hit so hard, because it was like, wow, we've never seen emotion like this out of, I almost said Ewan McGregor. I meant Obi-Wan Kenobi. They've just like melded in my mind. Yeah, exactly. But to get to then let a character who's always kind of cracking jokes and being snarky and not taking, I mean, he takes it seriously. It's not like he's not taking it seriously, but like,
Well, there's a person in there who's always ready with the snark. That's his personality.
Yeah.
But he shelves it when he needs to and then pulls it out at any given time.
Like, this actually segues really nicely into my runner-up, because,
Yeah, what is it?
well, so much of Obi-Wan is repressing real heavy, dark things. I mean, like we said, he rises to the occasion and like kind of moves beyond the super emotional stuff in a way that's frighteningly efficient sometimes. The lawless.
Yes, I was thinking that too. You know, Vader's pulling people out and snapping necks and stuff. That had to have raised some kind of emotional trauma from Satine being held there and then just boop, done.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I never even put that together. You're so right. That was...
Well, it's not like we got it in the show, but in our minds,
No,
we know that this has already happened to him. Poor woman.
right in front of him.
Anywho, your moment.
So that's why I love this scene between Obi-Wan and Leia in the back of the truck, which
Oh,
I'm
the
sure
back of the truck. Yes.
probably no surprise to anybody that that's like on my list, because it is one of my favorite moments of Obi-Wan ever, I think.
It's so good. It's very good. Well done. All around.
I think it's so special because he is so human in that scene. And we're so used to seeing the hero, or like we said, the general who's kind of snarky, and we know he can fight really well and takes everything very seriously. But that moment is just a man talking to his best friend's daughter, like trying to connect with her and comfort her in a way that we, not even with like Numa, because even then he was still
True.
Ben, back to the fight, fellas. Like, it was
Yes.
never getting too connected to anybody. He always kind of kept Satine at arm's length. He was very rarely gentle with Anakin, even. And that's why I love this moment, because he turns to her, and then the cinematography is very close. It's just the close-ups of their faces, which implies like intimacy in not in like a romantic way. It means like emotional intimacy between people. It's very important for her to ask these questions and put him on the spot in a way, and for him to respond calmly and kindly, and then make reference to his parents and his brother and a past that he has never spoken of ever under any circumstances before. I thought was really interesting, and
Well, it's beautiful because he felt safe with her already.
it felt like to me it was the first time seeing the real Obi-Wan. You know what I mean? Like, he is a general and a Jedi and a diplomat and on the HoloNet or whatever. He's a hero of the galaxy. This was like just Obi-Wan. This was just like a man, and I really liked it because I like craved this the whole time during Clone Wars. I love the hero, but the thing I think that like really makes good storytelling is when you kind of crack that every now and then, and you see, oh, he's a human being also.
He's a good human being.
He is, but to see someone who's strong have vulnerability, I think is important for the audience, because it's like
Extremely
a
important.
reflection of ourselves, that it's not necessarily unattainable to be a strong person, even though we might be feeling weak or vulnerable. It's like, well, your hero also have moments where they're weak and vulnerable. I think it's just a really beautiful scene. It's one of my favorites. It's so beautifully acted by the two actors. And
It's insane how good it is. With such a young actress too.
Yeah.
And a seasoned vet like Ewan. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's very beautiful.
Again, like, I think Ewan has matured so much as an actor. When he was younger, he was good, but I sometimes kind of felt like I could see through it a little bit. And now, basically, in the last 10 years, he's done projects where he took risks in ways he didn't when he was younger. You know, he was always, like, naked and everything when he was younger.
For sure.
And, like,
100%.
you know, really put himself out there, like, literally. And now I feel like he takes more emotional risks now where you see, I don't even know how to describe it. It's more existential. Because before, like, even in, like, Young Adam, which I cannot bear to watch, that movie's so upsetting.
Oh my God, I know.
It's like, yeah, okay, you're being gritty, but, like, ew.
It's so true.
Like, I never want to see that again. And the stuff he's made more recently, it's like, wow, I would never have expected you to make a movie like that. It's very interesting.
That's great, though.
Yeah,
That's
I love it.
growth.
Yeah. And to have, this is my desire always, to bring that sophistication into Star Wars and let the actors really act and not be hammy, because it's just like, it adds so much to it when you allow them to do what they do best. And that's, I always feel that. And the last time I saw, like, Return of the Jedi on the big screen, even though Mark Hamill is having to ham it up, there are moments where he's really acting the shit out of a scene. And to see it on the big screen, it was like, I had no idea he was actually crying in that last scene with Vader when Vader dies on the floor.
Yeah.
You can't see it on the TV. On the big screen, you can see it. I was just like, holy shit. That's why that scene's so good. And it's underplayed. It's very subtle. He never overacted it. And that's what Ewan does so beautifully as well. It's not hammy. It's perfect.
No ham involved in this Halloween scene.
It's a ham sandwich.
I agree with everything you just said. I'm sitting over here shaking my head the whole time, trying not to interrupt you with my, yeah.
That's how I felt with your last one, too. I was just, like, nodding really hard. Like,
He's a really great character. This is a really great show full of great moments.
Yeah.
And we could do this for another 4 hours, probably.
Probably.
No problem. But we're going to revisit more favorite Obi-Wan moments. We're just going to randomly pick stuff in the future. Like from this episode of Clone Wars or this part of this Return of the Jedi or I'm not, Revenge of the Sith is what I meant to say, but whatever. Yeah.
I have to say, too, I have, like, some little honorable mentions. And,
Let's go.
When Leia falls off the roof.
Oh, yeah.
I love that scene so much. Oh, my God. Because they do this hyper close-up, right? Which is...
Yeah, they do.
They only use that when it's supposed to be super intense emotion, right? And he's panicking, like legit panicking. They close up on his eyes and they're like looking everywhere and he doesn't know what to do. And he's like, oh my God, just hold on. And he's looking for someone else to help. And you never see Obi-Wan Kenobi do that. Ever.
Never.
I loved it so much. And then it forces him, like, you're the only one. You're the only one there. You have to do it. And he rises to the occasion, and it's so satisfying. My God, I love it.
It is really satisfying. I think it's fantastic that Leia is the one that brought it out of him. I think that is extremely on point for if he's going to do it, it's going to be for one of those kids.
Yeah. And I love that it was for her. I know some people didn't like that it was Leia. I loved that they brought Leia into the story because I think they did it well. They really...
I do too.
And Vivian she was so great. And
yeah,
I have no complaints.
Zero.
Then I also just really love anytime he punches someone.
Yes, we've been over this before.
It's so great.
It really is. We need more physical force.
Seriously, like, I love when, we've talked about how hot it is when Jedi just use the Force, but also when Obi-Wan, who can use the Force, chooses to use his fists.
I'm just ready to see Obi-Wan slap someone, like, straight up backhand.
I would love to see that.
And I honestly think it's deserving of... I can't even say I feel like if Obi-Wan were to ever backhand somebody, it would be his buddy there with the tattoo, the thing over his nose, the Jedi with the
Quinlan?
dreads. Quinlan, yeah. He would backhand Quinlan.
Yeah. Yeah, or Maul just to get a rise out of him.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
That would be cruel.
Did you have any other honorable mentions?
Just basically like especially the first time he turns his lightsaber on.
Oh, yeah.
That is like, we've been waiting for it for so long. And he immediately has that like powerful stance, even though he's like not ready to fight, that muscle memory's still there. Mm-hmm. And anything in the Inquisitor Fortress when he's like slowly getting his mojo back, it was just like, oh, I love this so much.
I actually wanted to mention the Inquisitor Fortress. Yep, there was a lot of good that went on in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, he's in a hallway. He's got like this odd essence of Luke in the hallway and Rey in the hallway. There's always like the hallway in Star Wars.
Yes.
You know, there's that moment. Yeah, there's a lot of good
and distracting the guards. And then there's that beautiful moment even with him and Leia where it's a reflection of Empire Strikes Back where she's lit all red and he says, I know, to her, just like Han does. It's such a great scene.
It's true. Oh my God. Yeah.
I could go on and on. We can stop here, but like,
okay. I guess it comes without saying we do love Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah.
Can't help it. I mean, it comes with the name.
Yep. All right, our question for you this week is obviously, what is your favorite Obi-Wan Kenobi moment in the Kenobi series? If you had to pick just one, you can say a couple, but you know, if you had to narrow it down to one, please let us know because we're curious as always.
You know us, we're bad at narrowing things down to one.
Oh, always. Yeah. We always have runner-ups and stuff.
All right, join us back for our next episode. We have something very different that we're going to talk about. And Leanne is being very kind to humor me with this. We're going to talk about something called the New Hollywood Movement and how Star Wars does and doesn't fit into that. It was a cinematic period in history from the mid 1960s to the 1980s. It was a specific kind of cinema happening at that time. And we're just going to discuss how original Star Wars, A New Hope in particular, does and doesn't fit into that genre. So join us back next time for that. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Most Things Kenobi podcast. We appreciate every single one of our patrons and are grateful for your support. If you'd like to support the podcast and become a patron as well, head over to the Most Things Kenobi Patreon. As always, you can follow us on Tumblr, Instagram, YouTube, and Threads, and don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. If you enjoy our podcast, feel free to rate us on Spotify and Apple. And if you need just one place to find all of these, head over to mostthingskenobi.com.
So until next time, my space twin, may the Force be with you.
Always.